Could you take us back to the beginning? How did you discover your passion for acting and storytelling?
Um, I think I was always an attention seeker. You big, noisy family on both sides. So um, I was like, this is my niche. This is where I'm going to be. I think um, probably around the time that my brother was born, I started thinking, what do I need to do to be noticed? But as far as sort of realizing I wanted to do it um, as a career, I kind of just kept. I was quite academic, and I just kept moving towards performance against everyone's kind of ideal situation. So
Yeah.
I think I was always drawn to it and always wanted to, yeah, to be a storyteller is a good way of putting it.
Yeah. When you look at your career as a whole, who or what has had the biggest impact, either personally or professionally?
That's a good question. There were definitely some people when I was at drama school. There was someone I worked with called Ken Campbell, who's very sort of strange, esoteric theatre maker who's now passed, but he really kind of freed me up. He was the first person who taught me how to improvise and really freed me up from an idea of having to just be like perfect, pretty girl and being like embracing the rough around the edges
Mm.
kind of feeling. And I was really inspired by Simon McBurney as well, who's like his theatre company, Complicité, was kind of where I was like, oh, you can make really exciting art
Yeah.
uh, and put it on stage and like be really interesting and playful and challenging. So that's kind of where I started.
You're also one of the new cast members joining Shadow and Bone season two. When you're playing a character that's existed in another medium, what's one thing that you wanted to make sure was translated from page to screen? And what's something new that you brought to her to make her your own?
Um, I think when it came to preserving what was on the page, it really stuck out to me that she was very single-minded
Mm.
um, and resolute when it came to the point of being obstinate, I suppose, when it came to kind of like following the direction she's chosen to travel in. So I really wanted to keep that kind of straight line directness about her in her physicality and in the way that I approach the character. Um, and in terms of bringing myself, I wanted to bring as much of myself to the character that I could really. So I, um, I kind of, I think it's important to ground fantasy characters
Yeah.
in reality as you can. So I have a brother, I'm mixed race, I have just the same sort of, I guess I'm quite front footed in terms of speaking my mind. So I thought it was more about bringing the characteristics of Tamar into my space rather than the other way
Mm.
around. So it would sit quite easily on screen. That was my plan anyway.
Yeah, and you definitely accomplished that. Beautifully said. This is such a unique role in which you're getting to play a twin, and all of your history and backstory is shared with another person. What was that collaborative process like working with Lewis as you approached this very specific bond and began making the character choices that you made?
Um, it was very lucky, I think, that we clicked. We clicked straight away. When we had the chemistry read, I was like, oh, yeah, that was good. That felt really good. And so once we started getting into discussions ahead of time, because we met in prep like a few months before, we actually started shooting and we started thinking about the backstory and the shared history that we had to come
Yeah.
up with because it needed to sort of sit easily. And we both had the same mindset of, they have to, because they've got the twin connection, they have a heart render connection, they're extremely close, they work together, they live together. You don't want to show that. You want it like in an outward way. You want it to be like an ease between them, like a very. And we both have siblings, and we know, no one's constantly kind of going, "Hey, brother, we're so connected." You want it to just kind of
Be
like.
natural.
So we talked a lot about, and we just hung out a lot actually, which I think is the real blessing, to be able to kind of be at ease with each other, make jokes, be physically comfortable and tactile with each other. So that was the main thing, just cultivating an easy brother. And we still kind of call each other like, he calls me big sis and stuff like that. Because we were like, yeah, that's what we are now to each other. Yeah, there's a lot of affection there.
Like you were just saying, you've also said in previous interviews that you're both of mixed race and you felt that connection during the chemistry read. Did you channel your own individual experiences with your identity and traversing this industry into these characters, and how beneficial was that to have as your initial stepping stone as you approach this dynamic?
Well, I guess it kind of goes back to bringing elements of Tamar into me. Like I didn't have to channel, I didn't have to channel it, because that is my life. That's my lived experience.
Yeah.
It's very rare that you get to live in a character the same experience that you have had personally. So that was kind of a kind of blessing and a rare opportunity to go, oh, I don't have to imagine like, obviously there's things like, okay, what it would be like Shuhan and Ravka, and but how it feels like to be someone between two races and never quite fitting in wherever you live, wherever you go, wherever you end up in eyes of other people. No research required. It's a lived experience. So yeah, with Lewis and I both, it was a immediate like shared, and it is like that when you meet someone in the same community, especially someone on the same mix as you.
Yeah.
In your mix, hap or whatever, you're like, we can relate, and so it's like a shorthand that we got to have, and a real, like I say, a real blessing to portray a character who can sit in that space.
The fans absolutely love and adore this series. And with season 2 out now, is there a scene in particular that you were really excited for audiences to see? Which was the most challenging for you to film?
Well, there were so many. There's a lot of challenging shoots, because there was like a lot of themes of weather and obviously quite a lot of physical exertion. I loved the fight that Lewis and I got to do on the Volvoni, the ship. That was great, because we were working together and we were getting to kind of show that choreographic style of like, we don't even have to think about each other. We know where everyone is. And I really, all the battle scenes at the end, that was very challenging. Huge setups, boiling heat, a lot of racing around, a lot of stunts. But there was a really fun stunt that I got to do where I basically like fly backwards through the air horizontally and like dig my axis into the ground to slow myself down. So in the middle of an extremely busy shoot day, I got to like strap into a fun harness and just be like, whee! And just like sliding around like a roller coaster. I was like, yeah, let's just do one more take of that. So that was really fun. That made me laugh when it came on screen.
And, like you were saying earlier, there's so many different colors and shades to Tamar. And as an actor, how did you create the space for yourself to bring each of those different nuances to the forefront and highlight that kind of contrast?
I don't know. It's difficult because, in a way, TV is an editor's medium, so you have to kind of be aware that whatever layers you're playing, you can't play too much of one note any one time, because you don't know what's going to end up in the final edit. So the writing is really, I mean, hats off to the writers, because they're writing for such a huge ensemble cast and trying to bring everybody's humanity to the surface. So I tried to trust the writing uh, and just be as natural as possible, and just trust that the character as a whole would shine through, and not try and play, this is a comedy note or this is an emotional note, because I thought you might lose that, as they're putting it all together, and then you'll be doing your character out of a dimension of
Mm.
their kind of personality. So yeah, that was my aim.
Yeah. It goes back to what you were saying earlier about trusting your instincts. And, you're such a dynamic storyteller. Outside of this project, what's next for you? And as you look ahead, is there something that's left on your bucket list?
Ooh, yeah, there's always something left on the bucket list, huh? I feel like this was such Tamar's such an opportunity, such a gift to kind of relive my childhood
Mm.
fantasy, my playground fantasies of like good versus evil, and like kicking ass and all of that kind of really sort of the stuff that you grow up on, of
Yeah.
like myth and legend and fantasy. Uh, and I suppose the next thing would be nice to counterbalance that with something like quiet, introspective,
Mm.
and emotion driven, and maybe, more in the naturalistic, realistic side. Um, Maybe not quite so many explosions, although I do love an explosion. um, and at the moment, I'm working on a live show with my comedy partner. So we're working on an hour-long show that's going to be going to the Edinburgh Fringe and then
Oh,
to London
cool.
touring. So that's nice, because it gives me another, um, you know, it's an immediate kind of creative buzz that you get to be in
Yeah.
front of the audience and making people laugh and creating something that's silly and fun and just for you in a way. So yeah, I'm getting another flavor on the dish.